first you had to get your expenses as low as you possibly could at home. Then you can build a really large account. 70% of all the money that you make can go back into reinvesting. Most people can't do that because their expenses are 40, 50, 60% of their take-home pay. So we really had to cut down on all the debt, house debt, car debt, things like that, to eliminate that outflow of cash each month. And then that's why we're able to invest 70%. Doing that exercise did absolutely help with that process.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Building a Better Business. Today, our guest is Caleb Hayes, the CEO of Park Place Holdings. Caleb, you and I met at Best Ever Conference a couple weeks ago, had a blast. Shout out to Joe Fairless and his team. They always put on the best, one of the best conferences in the nation when it comes to commercial real estate investing. But you and I just ended up finding each other multiple times throughout the day. I mean, there's hundreds of people there, and somehow we always found each other. I think it helps you. I've noticed you wear black a lot.
Absolutely.
I feel like you're Mark Zuckerberg. Like you just found your look and you just stick with it. But we found ourselves always kind of in the same area and talking about life, about faith, about business, and about real estate. And there was a lot of commonality and similarities. And so I invited you onto the podcast because I want to rehear your journey, starting as a business owner, continuing as a business owner, but then leveraging it into real estate investing. So again, welcome to the show. So glad you're here. And I know our guests are going to get a bunch of gold nuggets out of this. So as we get started, can you kind of walk us through, let's start at 18, because I remember you said you started in business and sort of investing at an early age, but let's start at the early teenage and let's move forward into like where you are today. Give us the background on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake. Thanks for having me on. I got a book when I was 12 years old. My dad gave it to me. It's called How I Made $1 Million Recycling Old Houses. And it was written in like the 50s or the 60s. It was called recycling back then. It wasn't called flipping. I read that book at a very, very young age, and it just kind of ignited this little passion that I have for restoring things, for real estate. And I started consuming all things real estate. I tried to buy my first property when I was a sophomore in high school, actually. Yeah. And my dad, that's pretty much what my dad said. My dad's like, listen, he's like, first off, he's like, don't you want a tattoo or something? Like, you want to buy real estate.
I should be talking you off the ledge of drinking with your friends, not buying a house at as a sophomore.
Exactly. And so, wanted to buy, he's like, you're in all the sports. He's like, I promise you can do this for the rest of your life. Just after you graduate, you can buy a property and that's it. Not before. So, fast forward to graduation, I actually got a property under contract when I was a senior, knowing it was going to close after I graduated, just to make sure I honored
smart.
my dad. And so that was 2005, bought my first commercial property. I literally had no job. They were giving money out like crazy in 05. Had no job, just graduated high school, and they had loaned me $55,000 to buy this first commercial property, which they never should have done. But I had go bank to bank to bank. I think I went to 6 or 8 banks, and it was no. And then finally my dad's like, let me just come and see, what's going on, like why you're getting rejected so much. And I think he kind of winked at the banker behind my back to help me get my start. And so got that property done, got that fixed up. And then I used the equity in that property to buy my second property when I went to Northern Michigan University, up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I house hacked before it was house hacking. So, 05 to 08, I was there with roommates, renting out the rooms, fixing that property up. And then I flipped 2 properties while I was in college. So I got a degree in construction management, flipped 2 properties while I was in college, graduated in 08. So I graduated in 3 years with my bachelor's while I was working and flipping houses. And those, I was like one of 2 kids, 75 kids in my program. Okay. It was 08 in a construction management program. Only 2 of us got offered a job. So I didn't really even want the job. I just knew
this is what I do.
None of my friends, I knew none of my friends got jobs. And so I kind of felt obligated. The world was kind of crazy at that time, obviously. And so just went straight into working for Gilbane Building Company out of Chicago. So I worked in Chicago for about 18 months after graduating. It was a great experience, really good training organization. But I figured out that I had made more money in college flipping houses than I did working 60 hours a week as a construction manager in Chicago. So that's kind of what kind of got my start. And then after that job, I moved right into, I moved to Green Bay. My wife and I had gotten married and moved to Green Bay and started working in real estate. So I had gotten my license first
Yeah.
when I had moved to Green Bay. And I had gotten my real estate license and I helped other people find residential good deals first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just realized that I'm going to be doing this for a very, very long time. I probably should own the brokerage company that I'm at because, then you can get.
Why be an employee when you can be an owner?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I found and fell in love with Keller Williams Realty. So from like 2012 to 2014, I was exploring, starting to get my feet wet in the brokerage world. And I had I launched the first Keller Williams franchise in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So all while during that time, I was still investing, flipping, holding a few properties. But then I kind of got this brokerage business going and I grew that to 5 offices. So
over how many years?
That was 08 or that was 2014 is when I launched Green Bay. And I grew that to 5 in like 5 or 6 years ish.
That's fast.
Is super fast, especially in the brokerage world. That's a lot of work. Small margins, a lot of work, a lot of great people, a lot of circumstances and things I didn't enjoy. I've actually had learned that I'm a much better investor than I am like kind of CEO, so to speak. So built those offices, built a title company, had realized that all while building those, I was also still investing in real estate. I built my flipping company up to where we were flipping between 40 and 50 houses a year ish of flipping them and turning them and then buying rentals. So we had bought about 70 single family duplex, 4 units, about 70 buildings, and had taken that and said, you know what? I got to exit the brokerage world in some degree. So I kept 2 of my offices, sold the other 3, rolled those profits into commercial real estate. I'm still majority and minority partner in the other 2 offices that I have. And I'm basically a full-time real estate investor now. I do invest in a couple other businesses, all of which I'm not an operator of. The only thing I'm an operator of today is my my real estate company.
Your holding company. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And all this by the time you're 38.
I'm 38 now.
Yeah.
Our portfolio is we're just under 100 million in assets. We're pretty conservative. We're 49% debt on those assets. So built a lot of net worth and equity in a short period of time by being very strategic and buying properties that kind of fit our buy box, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, let's push pause here because there's so much to dive into there. Let's go back to the conversation you had with your dad. We don't typically talk about like family. We usually talk about business exclusively, but you brought up something that I thought was really interesting that your dad gave you a book when you were young. Now I imagine you're just wired this way to be a high doer. I mean, now I'm 38. Oh, actually I'm 39 as well right now. So if I had the mindset that you had back then, I can only imagine where I'd be as far as I'm a little late to the game. Let's put it that way, or later than you are. But I want to know, like, beyond just that's the way you're wired, what was it about your dad or your family that got you going at an early age? Because I'm thinking, like, listeners are mostly business owners, the people who listen to this podcast. And so they're probably also wondering, like, how do I educate my kids or my family on what I do on business? How do I make them financially not only well off, but like just literate in general? What was it about your dad's approach in that book that kind of teed you up to take you to where you are today?
Yeah, my dad and my mom had always had a mindset that they always wanted me to pursue my passions. They had their passions, they chased them, but they always kind of created an environment to which they always piqued my curiosity, meaning like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you want to do? Like when you get older, like what do you want to do? And they started putting vision in my mind, going, oh, you know what? I'm not sure. Like, I want to try this or I want to do that. Now, I luckily found my passion at a very young age with real estate, but and I had also witnessed them. They're entrepreneurs. I had also witnessed them build 9 apartment units, and then they just kind of stopped. They built 9. They've owned them, but I've always just saw. I was able to observe the fact that
Yeah.
that always was a stable thing for them. Like if they ever got in a bind, they would pull money out of the apartments and
Yeah.
use it for whatever. And it was just always kind of this thing. And my mom had always said, um, uh, she's like, Kib, I think you should do real estate. She always told me that. She's like, you can do really well in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And she always told me I could do it. And then as soon as I became a senior and I was going to buy my first property, she's like, you can't buy real estate. You don't have any money. She immediately went into like protective mom mode, not letting me get hurt. But the thing that I think we got to work on with our kids, and this is what I'm trying to do with our kids. Like, first off, we have to understand that the environments that we put our children in produce a mindset around money and life that like just think of it this way. We send our kids to school, they get educated at school, they go into the workplace and they go on. 90% of our children are put in an environment, and then 90% of those children have learned behaviors and learned things that produce the result that most people have.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, and I don't mean this cruelly or anything like that, but 90% of our world is broke.
Yeah.
Like most of the people that want to give you financial advice are broke.
Yeah.
And it's not you're good, you're bad, you're whatever. It's just like if you just go just strictly financial, 90% of the world has less than $1,800 in savings, right? So we have to be very aware that when we put our children in the world, that what they're learning financially is not going to set them up for success if by chance you're beating the standard of the 90%.
Yeah.
Or the 80%. So like, I'm very aware of that. And the other thing that I'm doing with my kids is I'm letting them fail. Like I'm encouraging them to fail.
Yeah.
Like that big thing that I am not afraid to get egg on my face. Our team is not afraid to take risk. We are not afraid to do things that other people aren't, and doing and taking that risk. My son's 11. He's got a YouTube channel, right? He's posting goofy, like he's posting super goofy videos, right?
Yeah.
It's like, good job. Way to take a risk. Like, hey, someone posted a comment that you look like a dork, you know? I'm like, that's good. That's a good thing. Whereas the rest of the world would run and hide from those things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm trying to get my kids to understand is like, you can take these risks, you can take these chances and it'll be okay. And that, most of the world doesn't want to do those things.
Yeah. I love that last point of letting your kids fail, like encouraging them to fail, and even your team to do that. Cause you're right. Like even I'm thinking about your parents in the situation of taking money from a bank as a senior or soon to be exiting as a senior. Like even me now at 39, I still get a little uncomfortable taking money from a bank or taking money from anybody really for that matter. Like our investors invest with us and there's always this kind of like check, where it's like, ugh, I feel a little, this is high pressure. Like I can imagine your parents wanting to protect you in that moment, but instead they said, well, this is a low cost risk. I mean, 55,000 is not a small amount, but in the grand scheme of things, especially what you're going to learn and how it's going to shape you and build your systems internally, that's a fantastic opportunity to grow and potentially fail. And I think you're right. I don't think we, as parents, give our kids enough leeway to fail. Like I know for me, I want to protect my kids as much as I can. Like I give them all the pointers of like the stuff I messed up and the things they should watch out for. But what's actually more impactful is letting them climb that tree and figure out like, ooh, this is a little shaky. Maybe I shouldn't go, rather than telling them you probably shouldn't climb that because I fell once and broke my arm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I love that approach of giving them the opportunity to fail and at least if I'm reading between the lines, like within a parameter, like give them safe boundaries to fail a lot. Correct. That way you can, prevent catastrophe, but you give them opportunities to grow and learn.
I'll give you a story about my dad. This is the way that he operated. We were just moving out to our farm. Okay. And he was installing, we grew up was born in Marquette, Michigan. We were moving out to our farm and he was installing the washer and dryer in our new property that we were going to be moving into. And he brought me along. And so we were up on this deck and we overlooked about a field that was about 13, 14 acres. So it was a larger field. And, this deck overlooked it, and I saw deer way over there, and I was probably 4, maybe 5, maybe. And I saw the deer, and I'm like, Dad, I want to go catch those deer. I'm like, I'm going to go catch them. Right.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, go nuts.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything. He's like, go nuts. And I took off after those deer in a singular focus, action-based 5-year-old, ran as fast as I could to catch those deer. Cause where I was from prior to that, like, you didn't see a lot of deer.
Sure.
And I'll be darned, I ran across diagonally a 13-acre field, and I got really close to them. Yeah. And to the point where, like, they stomped their feet at me and they blew through their nose and scared the living daylights out of me. But I never looked back. I ran that whole way, never looked back. And then finally I got a little scared. The deer took off. And then I'm like, okay, I got to go back. And then I turned around in this field. But when you're only 4 or 5, the grass is over your head or really tall. So I had no perspective. Yeah. And I look back, I'm like, where's my dad? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I was afraid. I was alone. I was young, and, but like, my dad didn't stop me. He didn't say, like, hey, the deer might blow at you. Yeah. You're never going to catch them. Like, I think a lot of parents would be like, that's dumb. Like, don't ever do that. Like, my dad's like, go nuts. Yeah. And then I got to experience it, and I got to learn it, which is the best way that I learn personally. And so, like, there's things like that I think are important that help build my journey for building wealth or investing in real estate, taking risks, taking chances, things like that.
I love that. So, okay, let's flash forward again. So you're back, you're building your brokerage firms. You've got, I think you said 5 at the time. Talk to me about, like, that season of life. So you're actively managing these businesses, and you had how many brokers at that time?
So we had 5 offices. We were probably pushing 600 agents,
600 agents,
600 agents. Yeah.
And in one way, shape, or form, they're all reporting to you.
Correct.
And you're actively investing in real estate at this point, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So walk me through that. Are you using equity in your previous investments to buy these new deals? Are you using equity in your business? Are you taking the cash proceeds, the profits from your business, and rolling them into new commercial real estate property investments? Like, walk me through, like, what does that look like? How did you approach that?
Yeah. So first off, my wife and I at a very young age cut our expenses pretty heavily. We don't have any debt. We got rid of our house debt, car debt, any debt we had. We got rid of that at a young age. And then what ended up happening was my business income would rise. Okay. And then it would produce income. And this is just the way that we do it. But 10% of every dollar we make, we give. 10% of every dollar we make, we save. 10% of every dollar we spend, and then 70% we reinvest. So that's been my model. Like, literally, it's been my model for as long as I can remember, 14 years, maybe. Yeah. So, and that model served us really well, because I've always had 70% of all the income that as my businesses grew, would produce that. And then I would take that and I would invest it. And I think some people put it in stock market, or they'll put it in money markets, or, bonds, or whatever. Me, I'm like, my drug of choice, so to speak, is real estate. So I'm moving that money into real estate. So my portfolio would go like this at the same time my business was going. And then the beautiful thing with that is when business income goes up and then you buy real estate, your taxable income that you typically have to pay, if you're wise about it, you can really mitigate your losses through depreciation, and really watch. I mean, like, I have not paid taxes in a long time, not because I'm, like, skipping out on paying taxes, but because of all the legal ways that they allow you to offset with depreciation. So I've always found them to be great things to have together at the same time. And I also learned 2 skill sets. I learned how to be a business owner, and I learned how to be an investor. Whereas I think some really good business owners, like, are amazingly good at business, make a bunch of money, and then they're like, oh man, now I gotta figure out how to become an investor now. Right. Like I've always kind of, like, did them at the same time, just to help. And so, like, I think there's people that sell their business, go to retire, and they're like, man, I got all this cash now and I don't know how to invest. Now what I do. Yeah. Where if you can do it early on at the same time, they're very similar. Running a business in real estate are very similar. So
100%. I mean, when we talked about this a lot with our investors, especially because a lot of our investors are business owners, is that when you invest in real estate and you're doing it actively, or if you're a passive investor and you're investing with someone who is active, you really are running a business. I mean, we call it investing, but it's running a business, right? You buy a piece of property, you put together a business plan, you execute the business plan, towards an exit, right? You have the end in mind the whole time. I mean, we don't buy, you would agree with this. We don't buy anything without a plan that we intend to implement once we purchase it. And so if I love your approach, if you're running your business and you're kind of growing as an entrepreneur and you're growing your revenue, but you're using that revenue then, or the proceeds, to then invest in real estate, which if you're active, you're able to leverage the skill set you have here over into real estate, plus the cash, you're able to rise both at the same time. And then the tax benefits, right? As you start to earn more income from your business, you're able to offset that with the depreciation from your real estate, to the point where, like you said, you don't pay taxes, not because you're a shyster, but because you're using the legal avenues in which the IRS allows us to offset our passive or active gains.
Right.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
What, and just for clarity for listeners, you talked about the 70, 10, 10, 10 sort of approach. Did that include your salary as well? Like, are you including that your salary into that 10% of your spending?
No.
Okay.
I collect a salary. So when my businesses produce income, I have a salary in there that's an expense.
Yep.
The 10% is just kind of like this free account where my wife and I can go like, hey, how much do we have in there?
Great.
And then it's kind of like guilt-free spending.
Yeah.
And it's been able to afford a really cool life because of things like that. So that's so I get my salary as an expense from inside the business, and then
on top of that,
when the business distributes $1,000, 70% goes to that, but then I get $1,000 for spending.
That's such a brilliant way to approach, and I unfortunately an underutilized approach to our money, whether it's your salary or it's a bonus or it's a gift. Like, being really intentional with the excess cash you have, because it's so easy, especially now in such of our consumer driven world, to take that money and just say, I want to buy stuff, or I want to, go on a vacation, or whatever the case may be. And you should really allocate some of that money to enjoy. That's why you have it. Right. But being really intentional about telling your money where to go. And for you, it's, we give 10, we save 10, we spend 10, we reinvest the 70 into things that are going to pay us back long-term. Right. That 70,000 or that 7,000 or that $700 is going to make me money while I sleep. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people ignore. They take the short-term gain for they really forget about the long-term play here.
Yeah. I think if most people to get to that point, I think a lot of people will go, well, of course they can do that. They've got these businesses producing cash and, all of these different things. But I would say that, I've been following that model 14, 15 years now, let's say. And I also, 50% of my net worth was probably created in the last 3 to 4 years.
Wow. That's insane.
Because that's the hockey stick of
compounding
of that. And we're getting in to uncharted territories now, where 70% of a really large company like that just compounds and maximizes, and it's just going to keep going. But it wasn't easy in the early days, especially my wife and I in our 20s were like, we're gonna, what is it called? The beans, rice and beans in our 20s, so that in our 30s, when we had our kids, we could have freedom and, do those different things. And now it's just about protecting that kind of that vision. So, and what we're doing.
That hockey stick effect is hard for people to wrap their brain around if they haven't gone through it or haven't seen it happen. But to your point, most of your net worth, or at least half your net worth, has come in the last 3 years, despite the fact you've been doing this for 20 years. Bingo. So you've had this steady growth, and then it just turns vertical at some point. Mm-hmm. Have you gone through the exercise of calculating, well, what does this look like in 10 more years or 20 more years?
I haven't. I do this really interesting thing where I'll train my subconscious to hit certain goals. Just visualizing a number by a date, just in the one bucket of net worth or financial goals, and it's worked every single time. So it's kind of crazy, but I haven't really walked it out as hey, if we're on this trajectory and we keep going, what it will do. I'm also just super grateful for where we
Yeah.
are already. So it's kind of like I kind of want to, but I also don't.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You
so,
don't need to. I was just curious. Like
yeah,
at a certain point, you start to see, boy, all the hard work that I did early on is now paying off because now I'm making more by not working. Like I'm
hmm
making more in like my passive things than I am my active things. And it
right,
gives you that freedom to be able to say, well, I can work if I want to. I don't have to work anymore. And that gives you, especially with young kids and a family, it allows you more freedom of time, freedom of choice, and freedom to give and be more generous than you ever had before. So, but that's a hard concept for people who haven't gone through it to imagine. Like it's not a straight line.
hmm
It really, with compounding, it really turns up real quick.
absolutely. And it's the thing with like the buckets and putting the 10% in the different buckets and the 70% is that all that we did, my wife and I, is we just detached our emotion to money,
Mm, mm-hmm.
which is like probably one of the biggest things that I think stops people from building a business or building real estate is they have a emotional relationship with money. So for example, if somebody's like, hey, can you give to this cause? All we do is we log in and we look and say, how much do we have? And do
Mm-hmm.
we feel that we're being called to give to this? And I
Yeah.
said, yes. I was like, great, then do it. Right. It's there. That's what it's there for.
Mm-hmm.
And then do it. Same thing with spending. My wife and I got in so we got into in our 20s, we weren't making as much and we got into a habit. I mean, you do something for a decade, you start getting into a habit of saving money. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes hard to get out from that habit once you have it. But then when you log in and you go, okay, here's what that 10% is,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that everything else is being taken care of and we're investing in the future, saving for a rainy day, like all those things, and like here's what we have to spend. It just kind of detaches this fear or this
Yeah.
emotion about, oh my gosh, if we spend that, are we going to have money for the future? Oh my gosh, if we spend that, it kind of like just kind of gave us freedom in it
Yeah.
and detached the emotion from it.
Do you feel like the thing that removed the emotion from it was telling your money where to go as opposed to it telling you where to go? Like it sounds like you budget. So budgeting your money actually allowed you to be more logical about it than emotional about it. Was that the thing that detached it for you?
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, first you had to get your expenses as low as you possibly could at home,
Yeah.
because then you can build a really large account. A 70% of all the money that you make can go
Mm-hmm.
back into reinvesting. Most people can't do that because their expenses are 40, 50, 60% of their take home pay.
Mm-hmm.
So like we really had to cut down on all the debt, house debt, car debt, things like that, to eliminate that outflow of cash each month. And then that's why we're able to invest
Yeah.
70%. So, but doing that exercise did absolutely help, help with that process.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, before we jump back to the story of selling your businesses and then investing it in real estate. Talk me through a little bit about the how your net worth has grown, doubled in 3 years. Like, let's kind of walk through. We don't have to talk about numbers, but more of like, how did that actually happen, so people kind of understand how that hockey stick plays out. Is this because you are selling businesses? Is this because you're selling your properties and then reinvesting it and doing bigger deals, and so you have more equity in things with less leverage? Like, kind of walk us through how that happens.
Yeah. So what happens is focus. So serial entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
started 17 different companies. I'm not kidding. It was 17.
That's
Um,
insane.
what I found about myself is that I'm creative.
Yeah.
I can get the bird in the air, so to speak.
Yeah.
I can get off the runway when most people can't. I'll have something done before most people have even started thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Like there's
Yep.
certain people that are that way. That I'm kind of one of those people, and that's really great. Like I feel like God made me that way, and it's like it's a super great gift. I can help get things off the ground. The downside to that is you can drift, and
Yep.
you can all of a sudden go, that's a good idea. Boom, start
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then you put it over here and it starts working. And then boom, start that. And then over here and it's working. But all of a sudden you get up and you're serving 17 different masters
Yeah.
in the business world. And you're like, I'm not doing any of them justice. So I had literally this like business life crisis where I'm like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I know I was made to be a real estate investor. I'm an operator. I'm operating all these businesses. I'm not doing any of them justice. Like, yes, I've got them off the ground to the world. They look successful, like all these different things. So the big part about that hockey stick kind of growth in net worth and business value and or real estate value was because 3 years ago I decided to prune all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them I sold completely. And some of them, I literally took probably 15 years worth of work and in 90 days hacked it down to my real estate investment company,
Wow.
Park Place Holdings, to
Yeah.
where that's the only thing that I'm focused on now, as the operator, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that part of focusing, I have a back screen on my computer. It says, do what you do best and forget the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what we do best is real estate investing. So
Yeah.
part of that hockey stick growth, and the vast majority of the net worth happening over the last 3 years is because I've actually gotten serious and focused about what I'm made to do and what I'm specialize in. And I think some people are businesses. Like some people are like, they can take the bird from one altitude to the next altitude, right? They could be a pilot from this altitude to that altitude, but they might have hard time getting off the ground. Like that's what they should be doing in their businesses. But when they do that, that's where that growth has been happening, because I shut down all the distractions, got super serious about what I'm good at, and I started taking down larger deals and pouring all my creativity. I promised my team I would keep my creativity inside the box, inside the lines of real estate investing, if that makes sense. So, versus starting more companies. So I'm an operator of one company. It's real estate investing. It's home for me. This is what I do. It's why at the Best Ever conference, it's like, these are my people, right? Like this is just what I do. So, I would say the biggest thing that has caused that was just a realignment and focus, and then just sticking with what I personally do best, which is real estate investing. Like we say no to so many deals that when we say yes, it's usually like a big yes. It's a big deal. So
how much, just for again clarity, how much percentage wise of your net worth is tied to business sales versus real estate investing?
So businesses produce cash and there's some value, right? Like a business is valued at something, but I'm probably 80% real estate, 20% business. That'd be my guess in terms of like net worth percentages. But I still love business. I love business because they produce cash. I just personally am not a good operator, but I've got great operators in there. So those operators running those businesses will come to me for coaching and help and whatever, that I'll serve them in any way I can, but it's their business. Like they do that. And then you get distribution checks from that. They follow through my system, and I invest 70% of that into real estate.
Okay. That's good. I think that's good for clarity for people to understand, like the balance between the business and the real estate. For you, you're active. So you're taking your money and you're investing in things that you plan to operate. And for a lot of people, it's more passive. They want to keep their business. They want to keep running their business. They want to take the cash from it, the proceeds, because it puts off great cash. They're very successful. And they need to find a way to deploy that into real estate for the tax benefits, for the long-term growth, for the cash, whatever drives them to do that. Most people, it's for tax purposes, the depreciation. But at a certain point, like you get to a point of they want to exit their business, and now they have this big cash windfall that they need to figure out what to do with that. So I kind of want to pick up the story there, where you've sold 3 of your 5 brokerage firms. Okay, you have this cash in your hand. What then? I know you've been doing real estate investing, so that's probably where your first thought was, but walk me through the process of deciding, what am I going to do with this? How to best allocate it? And how do I think about my tax burden in this transaction?
So the thought process of dumping the companies actually had very little to do with the capital. It had more to deal with the sense of like, I had to get out from underneath them because I was serving 17 masters, not serving any of them well. And then you just so happen got checks from when you would sell them. And so what I did with those checks then is moved them into real estate. And I just made sure I bought enough value add real estate during that time to offset whatever my tax liability would be. So this is where you need to have a great real estate accountant and a real estate attorney as a partner if you're going to be an active investor. If you're going to hand your money over to funds and have people run that for you, then that's your team. That's what you're paying them to.
Find a good active operator if you're going to be passive.
Correct. Exactly. And so for us, it was just hey, we had a big windfall full of cash. Now let's call our accountant and say, hey, we just got this check. How much would be owed to taxes? They'd say 300 grand. I'd be like, great. How much real estate do I need to buy as a value add this year to offset that amount? They're like, okay, you got to go buy $3 million worth of real estate.
Done. Yeah.
Go buy 3 million.
Yep.
And most of the stuff that we buy is heavy value add. There has to be value creation and cash flow in the very near future for any projects that we buy. And so if you buy a $3 million building, typically for us, that's a $5 to $7 million building once it's fixed up, right? Just with the way that
you forced appreciation on it.
Forced appreciation. Yeah. So you're not only getting the benefit of not paying 300 grand to the government, you're putting that into that building,
yep.
Then increasing the value, increasing the net worth of the building and of yourself. And then, refinancing it later, which is a non-taxable event, to either pull your capital out to keep it moving.
Yeah. And then reinvest that somewhere else.
Correct.
You end up with this massive snowball where, you see the graphic where it starts small and it rolls down the hill.
Yes.
It gets to the point where it gets big enough that it puts off, you just keep reinvesting, keep kicking the can down the road. And I imagine, are you doing 1031 exchanges when you're exiting these deals?
So I'm not a huge fan of 1031 only. Okay. I'm a huge fan of the tax benefit. I'm not a huge fan of 1031 because of the pressure it puts me and my team under.
Yes.
We typically very rarely invest with emotion, and pressure to me is an emotion. It drives fear. It drives a lot of things. So,
bad decisions. So I've done them. I've done a 1031. I've done a reverse 1031. I've done both. I love them. I will use them as a tool if I have to. But it's not a big, we're not we're going to 1031 3 properties this year as part of our corporate goals. We just don't do that. But I do love it in the sense of kicking the can down the road with what you have to pay in taxes. Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why I asked this for listeners, and maybe if you're listening, you're like, what the heck is a 1031? So it's part of the IRS's tax code that allows you that when you sell, let's just use real estate. When you sell a multifamily apartment, you've got to realize those capital gains, or you can roll that money, the proceeds from that sale, into a like-for-like investment. And that allows you to defer your capital gains to a later date. It just has to be a like-for-like, and it has to be a more valuable property. This is regularly used. And to Caleb's point, though, the reason why it's a little stressful is that there's a time frame that you have to execute this. And so if you can't align your sale of or exit from a property with the purchasing of a new property, you could end up missing that kind of window where then now you have to pay capital gains taxes on that exit. And so it does create a little bit more of a stressful situation where you can make bad decisions because you're emotionally driven to hurry through this thing. Now, a reverse 1031 exchange gives you a little bit more time frame, but I've never done one, but I know it's a little bit longer, but it's a little bit more, I don't want to say difficult, but clunkier. This is a different process. Where in some cases it sounds like you just may pay the capital gains tax and keep moving forward, right?
Potentially. You also, a thing, if you're early enough in the year and you miss the 1031 deadline, you can still offset those taxes by buying more and larger properties outside of a 1031. But it just, it puts a little bit of pressure on you that you have to sell yours, find the new one inside of the time frame at which the government allows you to do it. It just adds a layer of complexity to it.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so then you sell your businesses, you exit, you have a chunk of money that you want to invest in real estate, and so you started deploying it. And then did you build a team around your Park Place holdings to help you manage this, or are you just doing this by yourself now?
So when I had the 17 companies, I had, probably staff 65-ish people, and I kind of pulled my group together from that company that I'm like, hey, we're going to go and just invest in real estate. And so pulled a team of 8, and then I'm the 9th member of our team together, and said, we're going to go after real estate hard and investing, and that dumping those properties and then getting on and working towards just focusing on really great real estate deals is what had kind of caused that hockey stick. I got 8 really great team members. We all work super hard to try to find good deals, and then execute on good deals.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're doing now. We've been doing that we've been serious investors for 3 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to hear, I never asked this to a guest, but I'd love to hear your thought. What do you think prevents business owners from, I don't want to say divesting from their business, but utilizing their business to invest in alternative investments like real estate? It doesn't have to be real estate, but I've found that personally that business owners tend to not think about things like this until they're closer to their exit. Whereas if they had thought about this years earlier, even if they weren't even ready to do it, they'd set themselves up for greater success, not only in their business, but also in their overall net worth. But what have you found, or what's the mentality like for you where that you've seen where business owners are not reluctant, but they just don't think about it until the very end?
Yeah. So let's say a business owner's here,
Yeah.
and then owning real estate's here. I love to have conversations with business owners going, man, great job. Your company's super successful. Yeah. I'll say, man, you must be getting killed in taxes. And they go, absolutely. They're like,
you
I
have
got
no idea.
$300,000 in taxes. And then I go, and I'm over here going, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, I remember when I used to have to pay taxes. I'd say something like that. And they'd be like,
what do you mean? What do you mean?
What do you mean? Like, you don't pay taxes? Like, no, like I haven't paid taxes in a long time. And they're like, well, how do you do that? And so it's just education.
That's
from
brilliant.
Business to owning real estate. It's just, there's just a gap there that they all think that a lot of business owners think that if they buy real estate, they're going to be getting called, hey, my toilet's not working.
Yeah.
Hey, my roof is falling in. They think of the bad things with it, but they don't really get to experience they don't, until I make it real to them that the $300,000 that they're paying to the government, they can use as a down payment on a property.
That pays in cash.
Yes. They get to keep that in their portfolio. The government's going to get their taxes. They're going to get it when they, it's coming, but they can use it during their working years to help them build net worth. It's like they all of a sudden will get a lot closer to real estate.
The light bulb clicks off for them. Yeah.
I'm on a couple business, like I'm with C12, Vistage, where it's business owners and groups and owners that get together. A lot of them, since I've talked with them about real estate, because they're all great business owners and I've learned a lot from them on being business owners, but they've moved a lot closer to wanting to own real estate, or they know they need to own real estate, or should own real estate, but they just haven't really
found the time to make to do the due diligence and make that mental jump.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time, but I'd love to end one with give you the floor to talk about whatever you want to talk about, or if you missed anything. But also, as business owners, we typically start businesses because we have a goal in mind. Like for a lot of people, it's just freedom. Like I just want to be in control of my own time and whatnot. But there's usually like an end goal that they have, and I'd love to hear yours. Like, what is it about owning businesses and investing in real estate that gets you going, but also like, what's the plan for this? How does this fit into your personal goals for you and your wife and your family?
Yeah. So we're kind of moving into a time where I actually love investing in businesses. Like I feel like I can find really good operators and be like, hey, I'll invest in your business. You run and operate it. It's your business. Like I'm no interest in that. I'm just going to make a capital investment into your company. And I love that because that's what I've learned so far that works for me. Everyone has to figure out what works for them. And so I love businesses. I love the cash flow that they produce. I love the value you can create in a business. I'm more passionate about real estate. And I would give people, just like I say, like business owners getting closer to real estate, just a part information that I would leave people with is don't become an active investor in real estate unless you truly have a passion for it. Like as a kid, like I loved restoring things, like something that the world says was garbage and didn't work really well. It didn't look good. It didn't, like it was ugly house or whatever. Just the whole transformation process. I personally get a lot of fulfillment out of that. And I'm passionate about it. I really enjoy real estate. I don't think there's any, in my opinion, I'm kind of a real estate nerd. I don't think there's any other better business to be in or
agreed.
But that's not for everybody. right? And just because you hear somebody on a podcast talk about how great real estate investing
Yeah.
is, you really got to check yourself and go, am I a better operator? Am I a better pilot of my business?
Mm-hmm.
And should I hand my money off to other people that are active? Or should I start learning and build this just like I know how to grow a business? Can I grow and build my investments in real estate? So, that's a caution. I've had a lot of people over the years that I've talked with that are like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. But then they just don't have the stomach for it. They don't have the passion for it. They don't have the things to carry them through the ugliness of real estate, because real estate has an ugly side. It
does.
There's a lot to it that a lot of people aren't aware of when it's a day-to-day, every day for you. So I would just leave people with that. It's like, just make sure you're really passionate about what it is. Do a lot of self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And how can you do it? I'm obviously biased. I think real estate's the greatest thing ever, but
yeah, I love that. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, if they want to look up Park Place Holdings, how can they do that?
Yeah. So just go to our website, parkplace-holdings.com. My email address is caleb@parkplace-holdings.com. Shoot me a message. Love to chat. And Jakes, thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for joining us on Building a Better Business. And this, I know, is going to encourage a lot of business owners, but also inspire them to say, all right, maybe I should start thinking about investing in real estate, even just a little bit right off the bat, to see how can this take the success I've seen in business and really start to see the growth in my net worth through passive investing in real estate. So yeah, again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story and for joining us on this podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Jake. I appreciate it.